Hey guys, welcome back to Hell in the Hallway. Your favorite therapist, Billy. Look forward to speaking with you over the next few minutes. And today we're only going to focus on the past, which is interesting because it's all about how we shouldn't focus on the past. But the name of today's topic is The Rearview Mirror is Small for a Reason, getting past the past. So, what do we tend to know? We tend to know, especially as a therapist, that most of us seek freedom behind locked doors, right? The past can allow us to feel blocked. It can allow us to keep us from moving forward. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that if you are trying to move forward in your life and yet you can't seem to open the door that you readily have the keys to, right? Because we are consistently looking for freedom in locked doors. And we don't realize that the key lies within. And part of my process as a therapist is to help people seek that freedom. First of all, they have to know they're even stuck. A lot of times we don't know. What if you were in a room that's let's say 6 by 6, right? 6 feet long, 6 feet wide, and you were in that room since you were like four, right? In your mind, that's the capacity of the earth, right? And that's if that's all you know, then that's all you're going to believe is there. That's why it's so important that we have people around us who can help develop us and help us grow and start recognizing that we're stuck. And a lot of times, our capacity to know we're stuck is found in conversation or found in how we navigate relationships. And by relationships, I don't mean just romantic relationships, because you certainly see it there, but I most certainly see it in work relationships and familiar relationships. So keep in mind, if you've only been exposed to a small room your entire life, you're going to really believe that's just how big the earth is, right? And that's just not the case. So there's three different ways we handle the past, right? So we can either focus on it, we can make it a lot bigger than what it is, and we call that a myopic experience, where we kind of hyper focus on something, and that's all that we see, and that's all we'll see, regardless of any contradicting evidence. We'll have evidence all around us that there's an other truth, there's an alternative truth, and yet we won't see it because that's all we are focusing on. And we will look for evidence for our myopic experience. We will look for evidence for the thing that which what was in our past and now has made its way to our focusing it on our present. We will look evidence. We will look for evidence for it, right? So a good example of that, a long time ago, my supervisor had given me some criticism, right? And I guess it was constructive criticism, but I was in my feelings about it. So I had went to the mall, was talking to my girlfriend about it, and I called her up and I was like, hey, this is what she said. This is how I took it. What do you think? And she was like, Billy, did you even take the time to call her? And I was like, no. She was like, well, maybe you should. So, okay. So I do, right? I'll call her. I said, this is what you said, and this is how I heard it. Did you catch that? This is what you said, and this is how I heard it. That is so important to do because it allows us to clarify information. Listen, just because we all speak English doesn't mean we all heard it the same way. Because if I had not done that, oh, by the way, she said, no, Billy, that's not what I was saying. I should have used different language. I should have said something else. And I was so relieved because what would have happened, I would have been in my feelings about that. And even bigger, I would have been looking for evidence of that statement every time we interacted. So I tried to ask clarifying questions just to ensure I heard right. Or are my feelings even valid? Because just because I have feelings don't mean it's true, right? Because our feelings are based on a visceral response that our body is having, and our body is always seeking survival. So I need to clarify and make sure that this response or this reaction I'm having is even a valid reaction. The other thing that we will do with the truth is lie to, not the truth, the past, is lie to ourselves, right? We romanticize it. We lie to ourselves. I mean, have you ever been in a relationship and it's over, and in your mind you go back to the circumstance you remember, and it seems much more amazing than what it really was? Or even a person, right? They seem much more amazing than what they really are. And then you get back with him or get back with her, or get back with them, whatever a pronoun you're using, and You're like, this person's a jerk. Why did I decide to get back in this? Well, you romanticize that. Be careful to romanticize your memories because then you'll make something that is not. And when we're lying to ourselves, we'll go back to behaviors, we'll go back to people that we shouldn't even go back to. So, a lot of times, if you've broken up with a person that you care about or that you love, that you might want to sit with yourself and ask yourself, really, why is this over? What is my issue? And you might have to write it down. I'm dead serious. You might have to write it down because you will forget. And you'll see an old post or see a picture or something that brings back good memories. But unfortunately, you're dipping your memory that's probably traumatic and awful in some glitter, and that's not real, right? So that's number two is what we tend to do is romanticize a person, romanticize a memory or something in our past. And the third one, which is the most healthy, that's really what we want to do. We want to keep this stuff in perspective. We want to be able to look at the past just like we look at the rearview mirror of a car, right? When you're driving down the road and you're having a good drive and listening to music, whatever it happens may be, how much time do you spend looking in the rearview mirror? Not much, right? Because you shouldn't. You'll crash your car. You don't want to spend all that time looking in the rearview mirror. You want to look ahead. The rear view is to glance. We glance every now and then. We see what's back there, but eyes straight ahead. That's where we need to be. We need to keep it in perspective. See, and then we get caught up in our past, right? Because we attach it to our personhood, meaning we start looking at the past as attached to who we are as people, and not as a circumstance or a behavior that we have indulged in. And when we attach it to our personhood, we start changing the meaning of who we are. Instead of us doing a stupid thing, we become stupid people, right? So that's what I mean by that. So you got to be careful of shifting something into your personhood because that's not what you want. So as a therapist really helps us to tease out those thoughts and help us tease out those behaviors that we have attached to a personhood in terms of who we are. Other than that, we'll be changing the meaning of who we are all the time. And that's really important because you have to pay attention to the narrative that you're telling yourself. What story do you tell yourself about yourself? What story do you tell yourself regarding any situation or circumstance or traumatic experience that you've ever had? Because that's why trauma can impact people in different ways. Because it's not really just the trauma, because the trauma is one thing or the memory is one thing, but it's the meaning behind it. It is the story that we tell ourselves. That is what matters. What narrative are you telling yourself about yourself? What are you telling yourself? And keep in mind, I'm not talking about the avatar you present to the world. No, I'm talking about who you are at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're sitting there by yourself. That person. What narrative exists for you, right? Because if we are not careful, we will tell a story of ourselves that doesn't allow us to grow so we can revise our story. And that's what therapy is all about. Therapy is about revising the story. It's about revising, really, let me correct that. Revising the meaning of the story. I can't change your past. I can't change who hurt you. I can't change who you hurt. I can't change what has happened. But what we can do together is shift the meaning of it. We can revise the narrative and the meaning of the story. Right? Because if we don't, it will attach itself to places in our lives and we will not be able to move forward. And I want you to move forward. So your revision game got to be strong. And you keep in mind, if you're not careful, you'll have people around you who will support a bad narrative, but you want to have people around you who will support a good narrative. You don't never know how to pick no man, or you can't pick no woman, or you can't keep a job, or you can't do this. No, it's not about that. It's really about behaviors. Because if we get caught up in our personhood and we'll make it about who we are, we will start living that and believing that. And that's called projection identification. We start identifying and becoming in alignment with the negative thoughts of others. Easy to do, happens all the time. Okay. So, important piece is revise that story on what you're telling yourself. Because if you're not careful, the story will revise us. It will tell us who we are. And we have to be in control of the story. Very first thing, be in control of the story. Because if not, the story is in control of you. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hope you get another episode of Hell in the Hallway and check you out next time.